agenda where it's at, bitch.
Guys, welcome to the episode of Into the West Comics. My name is Frank. The hot dog corn dog Paul is here.
Hi.
Yeah,
How's everybody doing today? It's hot outside. Very hot outside.
Uncle Nephew Shane is here.
Morning, everybody.
As a rare occasion, Brother Marcus is here at the table, and he's here at 6 o'clock. It's pretty
Once
nice.
again, guest star
Hey, everyone. Good evening.
Marcus.
And we brought in some local talent for such a special event. We've got Stephen Lolito, local creator.
Well,
There, chilling in the lounge.
my back just dried, so
He's ready to go.
Yep,
Is that because you're nervous or because it's hot outside or both?
I'm gonna go with both.
Very cool.
My back just dried. I think that's code. And please welcome our special guest all the way from the Great Northwest. You know him. Well, I came to know him from reading the Flintstones back a few years ago. That kind of changed my whole perspective on Bedrock. Let's see. Billionaire Island. Not All Robots.
Yes, One Star Squadron.
Traveling to Mars, Prez, the one-shot death ratioed. He's going to be taking on a post-Krakoan age pretty soon with a brand new X Factor team in the coming weeks and months. Please welcome Eisner-winning, GLAAD Award recipient, Ringo-nominated, BET and Source Award viewing, Flintstone vitamin hating, Mr. Mark Russell.
Hey.
That was phenomenal.
Mark, thank you for.
Really?
I heard that was
God.
kind of controversial, and like the comments that came afterwards. Yeah, we could get into that a little bit. That was my question to just kick things off. I loved the whole Flintstones series. That whole run was amazing. That's how I was introduced to you, and I just wanted to ask, how big of a Hanna-Barbera fan were you, or a Flintstones fan? I love the Flintstones. How big of a fan were you growing up of the characters and or just Hanna-Barbera in general? That's fair.
Yeah.
Man, is it great?
Yeah, that big slab of ribs
Well, no.
that just like tips the car over.
That's true.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Love
Yes.
Yeah. Like there was a bowling ball, like one of the animals referred to just as bowling ball.
or the
Yeah.
or the
And
elephant.
it was,
Yeah.
you know, not to get too heavy-handed about it, but it was sort of like, well, this is how we sort of see each other. It's like we don't see each other so much as human beings. It's like, oh, that's the barista, or oh, that's the bus driver.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, and that's what allows us to sort of dehumanize each other, is that we see each other as our economic functions, not as the people who fulfill them. And and that's what the animal appliances are supposed to represent, how they don't even conceive of themselves as beings apart from, like, they call themselves, bowling ball and vacuum cleaner and
Right.
coat rack. It's impossible for them to conceive of themselves as any other way, but like the way they have utility to these human beings.
I love it. Paul has a question for you.
I'm
So-
such a downer. I'm
No,
already-
no.
I'm
good.
Yeah, definitely sensing a theme with a lot of your works. With those similar
Yeah.
sorts of parallels. Ron, go ahead.
Yeah, and this is kind of related. So there's a moment in a different comic, the Batman Dark Age comic, which recently all three came out, which I loved, by the way. I love the whole new mythos you kind of built with the Superman and Batman character and kind of returning them to the way they were in their heyday and also telling your own story with them. But within that comic, you do a really good job of what you do with everything, kind of mixing in the lighthearted with it's funny that you led with making it heavy-handed. You always do such a good job of, oh, this is a lighthearted scene, this is a less lighthearted thing that's going on. And then there's this moral quandary or questioning. And the moment in the Batman Dark Ages that kind of I loved is in the first issue where there's the comedian telling the joke about the man who's dating a sex worker and all the crowd is making fun, is like, oh, ha, 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 ha. And Bruce is just sitting there. And then he's like, well, at least he knows what he is. That's a terrible redelivery of it. But he's like, at least he knows what he is. And then Bruce is the only one who laughs at that, and everyone else is like, I'm leaving. So I just wanted to know about your process and how you balance that, making it funny and making it lighthearted while also making it poignant and important and worth reading on another level.
Well, the writer George Saunders has this great line that I've sort of made my North Star in writing satire, where he says, humor is just the truth quicker than you expected it. So that's kind of what I don't try to write things funny so much as I try to write them true. But if you really condense the truth, it suddenly sort of automatically becomes funny.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's definitely, I see a definite similarity with that. I mean, even with like One Star Squadron, you start off, it's very funny, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh man, this is kind of sad. Why?
Yeah.
So I almost feel like you tricked me.
I can't help myself. But I feel like in a lot of ways, comedy and tragedy are sort of two sides of the same coin as opposed to like different things. And I feel like humor, if it's just funny, if it's just constantly, just sort of trying to be funny, it feels like eating a stick of butter, if that makes sense. Like butter is great, especially if you use it cooking other things. But I don't want to eat a stick of butter by itself. I know some people do, but I personally
I mean, maybe.
prefer not to have it by itself.
You'd be surprised.
Oh man, that's too funny. So so I didn't realize this. It wasn't until I actually stopped by my local comic book shop, Alternate Reality, and they wanted to
That's a great
extend.
shop, by the way. I love Alternate Reality.
Yes, Ralph and Pierce wanted me to convey their regards to you as well. I guess you stopped in there last time you were in Vegas.
I did.
Okay.
I did, and they're fabulous. I was blown away by their displays and how much they knew and how well curated it was. So yeah, if I could just give them a shout out, great store.
Oh, awesome! Yes, I will definitely make sure that they know, definitely. And so yes, in the days leading up to this interview with you today, they had a copy of, I guess this just came out, your first work, Prez. It's a collection from DC Comics. I didn't realize this was your very first one. I guess it was canceled at some point, and then and then that is what led into the Flintstones thing. And it's so funny because I'm reading the foreword to your Flintstone Deluxe Edition, and it mentions Prez as like, okay, well, you know, I'm not exactly sure. They canceled this title. Are they going to cancel Flintstones as well? And you were kind of hesitant to, like, you know, oh, how much should I invest in this if they're just going to cancel it, you know? And so I thought that was very interesting, that in the forward you said, okay, well, I'm going to make sure if they only give me 12 issues, because I think you were speaking with one of your editors that was saying that they would probably at least give you 12 issues for the Flintstones, that I'm going to just put everything on it. And then lo and behold, it exploded. And it led into just this huge, like, just run of just different things. It's honestly, it's hard to keep up with you, to be honest with you. I mean, because you're writing for Marvel, you're writing for DC. AWA is like, just amazing. All the stuff that's coming out from that publisher. Not All Robots was actually the first title that introduced me to you. And then yes, we actually met. You probably don't remember, but 3 years ago when you actually came down for the library festival, I met you and you said, you know what? I don't want to lose a sale, but wait for the hardcover, because I wanted you to sign my hardcover, my Flintstones hardcover. And you said, no, just wait for it. I don't want to lose a sale.
Sounds like me. Sounds like losing a sale.
Yeah. And so I think I ended up buying like Second Coming from you in trade paperback, and you signed it for me along with this. And I believe it was Dead Box that you signed the first couple issues. So I always appreciated that. And I wanted to just extend my sincere gratitude for being just such a down to earth, cordial guy. Because that just, you know, a lot, you know, there's that saying, you know, don't meet your heroes type of thing, where sometimes that can ruin it for a lot of people. And when I meet guys like you, Gail Simone, any of the down to earth guys who are just, you know, larger than life in the comic universe, but are still very grounded, that is very refreshing as a fan, you know. So I appreciate that.
Wow, well, thank you so much. That's really I'm just blown away hearing that. It's really moving. So thank you, and I'm glad you had a good experience with me. I'm glad I didn't say something stupid.
Well, hey, we were all still kind of half masked up then, so it probably would have came across as like a mumble anyway.
Yeah, good.
But
I always appear like that, I think.
Yeah. But I did want to ask, are we going to see a continuation of Not All Robots? It ended so strongly, and it felt like it could still continue. Are we going to see more of that?
Well, I had planned a second volume, and I'd plotted it out, and I had sent an outline, and they sounded like they wanted to do it, but we haven't really heard anything about it since. And, you know, I've done other things with AWA, as you mentioned, so I'm not terribly eager. I mean, it's not vital to me that we go back to do it, but if they ever want to, I've definitely got another story idea lined up for it.
Oh, great. And then, I mean, Mike Deodato's work on it was incredible too. The artwork and
it'd be worth doing just to work with Mike again for me.
Yeah.
I was reading Not All Robots, and just to go back to the comedy aspect, but it's the robots themselves have such a personality to them, where you're just going, are they robots? I mean, they're downers, but even some of their personality is sort of like on the sad side, but it's still kind of funny. It's funny that they're feeling this way, these robots, or the way they interact with each other. Yeah. And I just thought that was just a brilliant thing. That you consciously wanted the robots to have these feelings towards each other. It's just a job to them, and you know, is that what you were going for when you started writing Not All Robots? And
yeah, the Not All Robots was written kind of as a social metaphor, like most things I write.
Right.
But I wanted the robots to really sort of symbolize, you know, human beings, but human beings who sort of like train themselves not to care. Human beings who sort of like, you know, feel like they're the victims, and they you know, even though they have everything, and that everyone else is just sort of an imposition on them. They're people who have cut themselves off from their basic empathy. And
Right.
that's sort of
Right.
the crisis. It's that it's like when you give the people when the people in power feel entitled to cut themselves off from their human empathy, they will begin to act like robots, and they will begin to treat the rest of us as though we don't belong on the planet. And it's not good for anyone. It's not good for us, certainly,
All right.
but it's not even good for them.
Yeah, they I just love the man. I got to get out of this position. They're
That's the
in.
problem. I
They're
think
just-
that the robots, like once they, are kind of like happy to replace the humans and tell the humans it's their
Right.
own fault, they can't like produce economically. Then what happens to the robots when they're replaced by newer models? And so
Right.
once you sort of write people off because they aren't productive or aren't making money, then you are ultimately writing yourself off, because the day will come when you are not productive or able to make money.
Yeah, you're obsolete.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we're all waiting for the day in which we become obsolete. It's just a matter of time.
There's the
So-
there it is.
We can take care of the models that are doing as well.
There it is. And you notice you made us all laugh when saying it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
great.
That's true.
Now,
Yeah.
Steven.
I know.
Okay.
I've actually just been enjoying the show, and I'm like, oh wait, I'm a part of it. I actually want to talk about this baddie right here,
Ooh,
because this
Dead
was my
Boss.
true discovery. I have read things by you, Mark. Of course, I used to read every DC tie-in that came out, so it was only a matter of time before I'd find you. But when I read this, I was so taken aback. Like, who wrote this? Where do I find more? And I was looking you up. I found you on Twitter, back when it was called Twitter. And I remember just posting, like, I love this comic. It's so amazing. I don't know anything about Mark Russell, but it's so amazing. And you actually responded, which I found amazing that you would do such a thing. And we got to talk about Deadbox a little bit. And you actually got to sign my, I think the first 2 issues were out at the same library show.
Yes. yes.
And you were out of Second Coming because enough people bought it, apparently, Marcus.
It's a rarity for me.
yeah.
Marcus bought all of, you buy all of them, Marcus?
I bought the trade. I didn't have Second Coming yet, so I bought the trade there. Yeah, directly.
It's fine. I ended up finding it later. But I thought it was pretty cool because I was like, hey, this is a weird question, but what would you recommend from yourself? And you're like, I would love to recommend a book by myself. And I asked for something that you maybe thought was a little underappreciated that you kind of put your heart and soul into. And you recommended Billionaire Island.
Oh,
And I was so happy to read it. I loved it. I read it the second I got home. And I was really happy when you released the volume 2 of it, because that was just such a, if anybody has not read it, that is it's just everything you would want in a Mark Russell book. So thank you for that. And thank you for giving me just a really good experience too. When I had met you, my girlfriend was super duper pregnant, and I had told you.
I remember that. Yeah.
And we told you the name, and you blessed the name. I remember.
That was what I consider a very memorable fan experience. Yes.
wow! I wish I was a fly on the wall now.
It was, I don't know why. It just was so comforting. I was like, "Do you approve?" And you're like, "I approve." Of so every night when I tuck my son in, Ezra, I say, "Hey, Ezra, by the way, good night. Daddy loves you, Mark Russell."
For better or for worse.
Right.
Stuck with the name there.
Wow.
I love that.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I
Yeah.
mean, Mark, maybe children's books in the works. I don't know.
Any
Maybe,
children's books?
maybe some children's books in the works.
Oh,
I don't think I'm legally allowed to write
Yeah.
children's
That's fair.
That's
I was just gonna, as I was saying it,
What?
I was like, probably not.
yeah.
You know, God is disappointed in you, right?
Yeah.
Right?
I guess you could read that if you were a child. I think Prez is probably the closest I've come to writing a book. Prez and Wonder Twins are kind of the closest thing I've come, because they're directed to teenagers. They're directed
Right.
to
Mhm. Yeah,
I
that's
forgot
another
Wonder
title.
Twins,
That's
too.
Wonder
about
Twins.
that.
That's ooh.
That was really good.
That one I think is underappreciated too. They need to maybe do a hardcover of that or something. It's just 2 trades, I think. And yeah, Absolutely
Yeah, I would
amazing.
love a collected edition of all 12 issues of Wonder Twins. That would be fantastic.
Yes.
Maybe they'll do the same thing they did with Prez and give it like a that YA format.
Oh, that would be cool.
That would be
Yeah,
cool.
definitely. And I mean, you're just everywhere. You're kind of like Mark Waid, because I remember hearing Mark Waid say that like he just works. Like any job that he gets, he just keeps writing. So you're all over the place. I even think you even did a little something for. Didn't you write a little something for Swamp Thing as well? Like a little.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Like
I
just.
did a whole series. I did like a 6-issue. It was six, I think, 16-page issues. But yeah, it's called Swamp Thing New Roots.
Right.
But yeah, I've always wanted to write I'm a big Swamp Thing fan, so I was ecstatic that I got the chance to write a Swamp Thing series.
Right. Is there a character either from the big two or something that maybe Image or some of the other companies have already created that you would like to have your hands on at some point?
Yeah, I think it'd be really cool to write a Howard the Duck title.
Yes.
Necessary.
Oh yes.
Very
Oh
necessary.
yes. Yes, because the way you and Chip Zdarsky convey humor, it's amazing. Like usually when I read humor, I don't laugh out loud. It's because you just chuckle it because it's on paper. It's not like a TV sitcom, but the way you and Chip convey humor, it makes you laugh out loud. So I think you would be a good fit for Howard the Duck
Thank
for
you.
sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask, we talked about a lot about this with our other friend, Philip Kennedy Johnson, and wanted to ask you about what your process with your artists is like Stephen Pugh or Mike Diodato or Michael and Laura Allred. What's that process like? Is it different for every book? How much do you tell them? How much do you let them do their own thing? What's that process look like? And how do you come together with the artist to create the look that you want, but also in their vision?
Yeah, it is very different depending upon the artist, but I try to have, the thing that's the same is I try to have a conversation with the artistic team at the beginning of every book just to kind of figure out what sort of artist they are. Because some people want a lot of notes, they want a lot of direction, and they want to know exactly what to draw. And other people want as little information as possible. They just want to know what's basically happening on the page or in a panel, and then just let them take care of the rest. And yeah, the Allreds are definitely, I think, in the latter camp, where I found very early on that the best thing you can do with Mike Allred is give him as few panels a page per possible, as little information as possible. Just tell him exactly what needs to be in there, and then just let him, rip. Let him be Mike Allred.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Whereas other artists find that sort of like paralyzing. They feel paralyzed with too much choice. So it's like, or they feel like they're having to work harder if you don't give them more notes. So then I try to write a tighter, more comprehensive script. If it's an artist I am not used to working with, like maybe I'm doing a one shot with somebody I've never worked for, I try to do it that way. I try to create more information than necessary, because I figure that way they know exactly how the movie's playing in my head. And if they want to ignore that or change it, that's fine. But they at least know what I'm thinking, and I'm not leaving them in the dark wondering what I was envisioning for this.
Right. And a follow-up question to that is, I don't know if you've noticed, but I did. James Gunn, the guy who's going to be directing the Superman movie, his header on Twitter is of your comic with the Allreds. It's from Space Age. That's his header on Twitter. So obviously,
Oh, really? No, I hadn't noticed that.
yeah, if you go to his
check it
Twitter,
out.
your book is the header on his Twitter, which is really kind of cool,
That's
if you
cool.
ask me. And
Yeah.
as far
I'm
as
barely on Twitter anymore, so I missed it. But yeah, maybe I'll go on just to see that.
yeah, I think that's pretty exciting. And in relation to that, how did it feel getting, after you write, obviously the Flintstones are iconic characters, not so much comic characters, more the cartoon, I think more people know.
Right.
What was it like getting the opportunity to write your own Batman and Superman comic, which everyone knows here, I'm a huge Batman Superman guy. And I had known who you were because of the Flintstones, and Frank put me on that. But this is like your recent stuff with the Ages comic is really what brought me on to you, and I'll read everything you write from now on. But what was it like getting the opportunity, to write those two iconic characters and leave a fantastic imprint on that mythos and kind of build your own?
It's a dream, and especially Superman has been a character that I've, has been my favorite superhero for as long as I can remember, since I was a little kid.
Oh,
So to be able to write a Superman story
That's
was,
awesome.
amazing to me. When I was writing Superman Space Age, it occurred to me that like Batman was almost like in danger of taking over as the main character.
Yeah.
Like I felt
As
like
he
I had more
does.
to say about Batman than I originally thought I would. So when we concluded Superman Space Age, we immediately started talking about doing a follow-up that centered around Batman.
Mhm.
So, but it's been a dream not only to be able to write these characters, but to be able to write them the way I want to write them, to be able to write them in a way that takes liberties with the backstory
Mhm.
and sort of creates my own, world with them. And ironically, the world that Mike and I and Laura have created with them hews much more closely to our actual world, which is to me kind of like strange that you have to sort of like, in order to talk about the real world, you have to go into fantasy. You have to make a comic universe that didn't previously exist to
Right.
talk about the one that does.
And then on top of that, the Batman comic and the Superman comic, they kind of, well, the Superman comic more so, it's a retelling of the kind of the Crisis on Infinite Earth story, or a prelude to that. Did you always plan on having it be that and your own version of that story with their own characters and how they came together, the formation of the Justice League? Was it ever just going to be a Superman comic, or did you always plan on having it be the team and dealing with that penultimate event from that time frame?
Well, I feel like in a lot of ways, the story of Superman is the story of the Justice League. It's a story of him like solving problems, not by himself, but by bringing in people to help, by inspiring others to sort of, try. He doesn't just save humanity from itself. He inspires humans, some of whom are also superheroes, to save themselves, to work together to
absolutely.
save the world. And so to me, that's a central part of the mythos of Superman. It's not him just like saving everybody and us going back and being jerks, but he's sort of inspiring us to be our own sort of version of Superman. And so that was always part of the plan. And also, it was always approved the idea that this was going to tie into Crisis on Infinite Earths. When it was approved initially, Dan DiDio said, I want it to end in 1985. I want it to tie into Crisis on Infinite Earths. And that was a really good prompt, because it got me thinking about, what if this was one of the universes that didn't make it? What if this is like one of the universes that's destroyed? And what would it mean to be Superman on one of these universes that he knows is going to be destroyed?
Right.
What would he do if he knew that he was doomed to fail? Which is like probably the first and only time in his life Superman has ever been faced with that feeling, the feeling that we all have, that this is going to come to an end. Eventually we will die, and eventually at some level we will fail. It's a feeling Superman never has to encounter that often. So when he does, what does that do to him?
Right.
And
the
then
answer is sort of like inspires him to take the job seriously.
yeah.
Right.
And then it has that, it being a kind of like a period piece as well, because you got all these historical events kind of interwoven in between to kind of give it some historical foundation and point of reference too. That was very cleverly done, I think. Very cool.
One of my favorite things about writing Superman Space Age was that allowed me to incorporate a conversation that I'd actually had with Congressman John Lewis. Because March came out around the same time as God is Disappointing, and it came out in the same publisher. So we had a party in the Marriott in the presidential suite to celebrate the release of March. And they had this buffet in the suite of like Chinese food, like all this different Chinese food. And so we were going through and scooping up Chinese food, and I happened to be in the line right behind him. And he started talking about how when he was doing the lunch counter sit-ins, they knew that they were going to get arrested. They knew they weren't going to get lunch at the lunch counter, obviously. So they would fill up beforehand. They would go to a Chinese restaurant and fill up on this food beforehand. And he talked about how delicious the food was, about how it would, while he was sitting in jail, he was just thinking about how great this Chinese food was and helped him through the being in jail for the night. And I thought that's such a great story, and it's such like
awesome.
good. It's such a, like I think a thing that every comic book fan can relate to, like how you use your joys in life to sort of get you through the hard times. how these aren't just sort of frivolities. These aren't just comics and Chinese food, I guess, are not just frivolities or luxuries.
Right.
They're the things that give you strength to like sort of bear the hardships.
Right.
Right. And then given the social climate at that time, who knows, that could have been his last meal. We don't know, you know, and at least he enjoyed it. And he pre-gamed successfully.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, he did. He was tailgating
awesome.
that. But yeah, and I just found it so inspirational that I thought, if I'm going to make this book about American history, what better way to make it not only about American history but my own personal book, if I'm telling a personal conversation I had with an icon of American history.
Yeah, and then I think he passed away like either just after that came out or maybe just before. I think
he passed away shortly before Superman Space Age came out. I don't think you got to see it.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure either. But I mean, moving right along, we have to ask the elephant. We have to. X Factor, X-Men with Marvel. How did that come about? I mean, the first issue has come out already of X-Men by Jed MacKay and Ryan Stegman, which was good. It's a fun starting point. I read it. How did this come about for you? How did this come together?
Well, I was invited to write X Factor. I think maybe because of Gail Simone or Tom Brevoort. I'm not sure who, but I got an invitation from Darren Shawn, who's my editor, or maybe it was him. Maybe he was the one that had the bright but possibly fatal idea of bringing me onto an X-Men title. But he asked me if I'd be interested in writing X Factor, and I love, of all the comic universes, like X-Men is one of my very favorite, because I think it's first and foremost about the characters.
Yes,
it's not really about power sets; it's about people that happen to have power sets. Mm-hmm. And there's so many really cool characters, and you can write about a lot of things that have nothing to do with battles, and and it's also a really good platform for social commentary. So I just felt like this was like a really great universe for me to be working in. And I wasn't super familiar with X Factor. I don't think I'd ever read like a full X Factor series before this, but I love the idea of like, these are mutants in the post Krakoa who have become like government agents for the United States, and what that would mean for them. Like, it would mean like they sort of failed on some level, I think.
Right.
They couldn't in their own country, so now they're having to make the best of a bad situation and serve other countries. And about how some mutants would think that they were traitors, others would think, well, this is the way we change the system from within, and just about going through that sort of debate within yourself, within your own community, about what compromises you can make that would make the world better for your kind, and what kind are just collaborating with the enemy. And I feel like it's a hard conversation, especially the worse the political climate gets. It's an increasingly common conversation we have to have with ourselves. At what point is our participation in the system propagating it?
Right. Interesting.
So this is kind of like a wide launch as far as them starting over the whole mutant universe, the whole X-Men world, right? They have X-Men, obviously. They have Uncanny with Gail Simone. It's going to be, I think, like 6 or 7 weeks from now. X Factor will be dropping in about a month. Is that right? I think August 14th.
That's correct. Yeah, August 14th. Yep.
And my question is how this works with the teams, okay? Because I'm like a fantasy football guy. Like, did you and Jed MacKay and Gail Simone, did you have like a draft party and you said like
what?
Gail Simone's like, I got Wolverine, and you're slapping like your notes, you're like, damn it, like I wanted Wolverine. Like, does it work like that?
That would have been the smart way to do it. I think that would have actually made sense.
Like, Angel, Havoc, Pyro, Frenzy, Fair. I mean, your team is great. I'm just saying.
No, I got a great. If it were a fantasy draft, I feel like I probably would have gotten the first. I felt like I would have gotten a good draft slot.
Absolutely.
But I mostly, just told Darren, my editor, about the story I wanted to tell, and I said, who would be a good, leader? Who's been on X Factor before? Who's somebody who would, and he would nominate. Well, Angel's available, and so I was like, sign him up. And,
that's great.
Right. So it was more of a kind of talking to him because he had a like a 5,000-foot view of what was, what was going on with all the other X-Men books. So he would tell me who was available and who had the sorts of powers I needed. And then he also gave me the freedom to create some of my own mutants. So I'm really happy to, I've got some of my own mutants on the team, which I'm really excited to write. There's like a 80-plus-year-old woman who has just recently discovered that she's a mutant, and her mutant power is invulnerability, which is a horrible power for an 80-plus-year-old person because you can't die.
Here goes that humor again.
Yeah.
There goes that humor.
She's this old woman who's lost everyone she's ever loved, and she's like, well, when does this end?
Kind of like Wolverine, really.
That was the epitome of the truth
she's got
earlier.
This sort of question, except she ages. She looks like an 80-plus-year-old woman, and so she's like always volunteering for the most dangerous missions because she wants to find out if she can die.
Eating a cheeseburger or something. My cholesterol's through the roof.
That's already my favorite
We're going
character.
to the moon, no problem.
No problem.
Can you imagine someone's 80-year-old
So she's not really involved to help out. She's just like, yeah, I'll help out as a way to actually just try to figure out if I can end this all.
In a way, she becomes super important because she's like the one, like if they're facing like, a volley of cannon fire or something, she's the one that they can run out into no man's land and take all the fire while the rest of the team sort of like sneaks around the side.
She's that paladin.
She's like like a legion of normal people.
I don't know about run.
Oh, man, that's great.
And you don't got to
Like a
convince her
walker.
at all. She's volunteering.
That's awesome.
Think about like what that would be too if you were like, the defender of some base or something, and this one old woman just starts walking across no man's land towards you, and you're giving her everything you got, and she won't
Everybody's
stop.
looking at each other.
Yeah, you at some point about like when she's like about 20 feet away from you, you would start to panic.
Demoralizing.
What's happening? Right
Demoralizing. We can't even take out this old woman, and she's
bombs
sitting there
aren't
like,
working.
please
now? Yeah, right.
end this.
like, what do I do? What do I do?
Similar
Ricky
to
Bobby,
the
what do I do?
The only
AT-ATs
character-
shooting there.
She's the only character in the series who has a catchphrase, and it's "I welcome death."
Oh man, 80-year-old wants all the suicide missions. She's like, I'm game.
Welcome.
That's freaking great.
That's pretty funny.
Dude, I can't
It's
wait.
going to
for
be
that.
one of those. I'm laughing, but I kind of feel bad that I'm laughing.
Oh,
right.
I love that. That's
Poor
my favorite.
Granny.
Yeah.
I
If you
can't
like to
wait.
see an old woman surviving horrific, violence, this is the comic for you.
Yes.
Oh,
I
Yes.
think we were already sold, but
Sold.
yes.
I already
Yeah.
had it added, but now
my
I mean,
God.
I'm looking for some
What is-
granny cover variants and everything.
Yeah, that's right. Some Grady cover.
What's her name? What's her
Yeah,
name
what's-
in
what's
this?
her name?
Granny Smite.
Oh,
Granny
okay.
Smite.
Granny Smite.
Oh
That's great.
man, Granny Smite is she's the character. of
Get the
year
shirts
already.
ready.
It's my new
Yeah,
favorite
right.
X-Men, actually.
Yeah, that's great. So with the X-Men, what's the degree of communication between you and all the teams? Because that was one of the things that I really enjoyed and liked about the previous, like the Hickman era, Krakoa era, was he was kind of like he was the long range thinker, and then he kind of supervised all the books because there was a lot of books for his world.
It's very different than everything I've ever worked on because
Right. I was
of
gonna
the
say.
communication. And I have to say, I probably am not the most communicative person because writing for me is a very solitary exercise. It's usually just me sort of alone in a darkened room.
Explosive.
So I maybe, I feel like in a lot of ways, because I go on Discord or I'll see the email chains, and everyone is just, it's like watching, Wimbledon or something. There's just all these calls and ideas going back and forth, or watching probably more like a freeway. It's like everybody else is just zipping by at like 80 miles an hour, and I'm like a student driver who's wondering if it's safe to pull out into traffic. And so it's very daunting because they all seem to really know what they're talking about, and they all seem to be really having a great time changing ideas. And I'm still sort of learning how to write this way.
Okay. Collaborative, in a more collaborative effort, you mean? Like
No,
okay.
usually I just sort of like compress my suffering and self-doubt into a globule and push it onto a script.
Man.
That sounds sweet.
Yeah, that's a good time.
This interview so far has been everything
Yeah,
I've needed it to be.
can't wait.
All the insight I was expecting.
You know, something about what you just said actually made this. Where'd I put it?
The
I was
deadlines.
wondering. It kind of came out of left field, but it makes so much sense why you did it.
Oh yeah.
This because he's
No, I'm
just
very
been.
proud of that. I felt like that was like that's. I don't think it's my best work, but it's sort of my quintessential work. It's sort of like this is like this is how I sound on like a normal day.
what made it so interesting to me is, of course, you know, I'm reading Batman Dark Age, you know, Superman Space Age.
Right.
I'm seeing you write an array of characters. Booster Gold right now with the Jurassic League. I mean, you're writing characters who are so many different personalities. But when I see Darth Maul and Star Wars in general, I'm like, okay, I'm ready for this. Like, because I feel like that's going to be you in a totally different way. But somehow you made it just really work. Like Darth Maul is just such a brooding, like he's been living in such pain and suffering for so long, and you just captured it so well. Like you captured the vengeance of everything, and it was really interesting to read in that way because I feel like it is one of your most different stories out there, even though it's just a one shot.
Oh, what is that? Darth
Thank you,
Maul.
Yeah, Darth Maul, Black, White, Red, issue 2.
Oh.
It's a different writer every one. I made sure I had to. If I see your name, I won't lie. I'm getting it. If your name's on it, I already.
Well, I think that's an excellent buying strategy.
Well, you blessed your child. You have to-
You blessed my child. Yeah, of course.
Child.
You must
least
pick
I
up
can
everything
tell.
he's done. Yeah,
His
because-
wallpaper in the kid's room is actually all of your books. That's why I started buying them.
He's
my
not
face.
allowed to touch them, but yeah.
It's like those.
You might need to keep an eye on these kids' reading habits.
Good taste, right? You know, I don't.
The kid will have good comedic timing, if nothing else.
That's true.
That is important. I feel like a lot of people lack that. A lot of the, you know, these younger kids, they timing. You know what I mean?
Man.
Oh yeah.
So,
Go ahead. No, please.
okay. So, another kind of avenue of your indie kind of ventures that you do, Ahoy Comics. So, My Bad is one of those other titles that is a personal favorite of mine, and it kind of makes me wonder, like, which, in terms of like working with these different indie publishers versus the big two, I'm sure there's positives, pros and cons for you know, all of them. As far as getting into like just doing your own thing with Ahoy or AWA, for those who are interested in like getting into comics in terms of like writing and, you know, doing something that you're doing, what advice would you give them as far as like doing their own thing and getting out there, maybe even garnering the attention of the big two?
Yeah, I think that everything you write is basically a lottery ticket, and you never know which one's going to pay out. So basically, the only strategy I can recommend is having a lot of lottery tickets.
Yeah.
For me, I got discovered from writing, and I'm not making this up, you know, Count Chocula fan fiction on Facebook.
Oh,
And
okay.
I never thought, oh, this is the
That sounds about right.
the surefire path to success.
Right.
This is going to get me noticed. And I'd written books, but they're not what got me a career in comics. It was this Facebook fan fiction that got me a career.
Wow.
So I think it's just write in any way you can, put it out in whatever format you can, because you never know who's reading.
Right. Absolutely. Because I mean, even just recently, one of your posts on Instagram, you were posting a copy of, I think it was Flintstones #1, and you were saying that it was originally intended on being just a side gig, like you were just writing comics. You know, you didn't expect it to take on the shape that it has become, and now you're kind of like a reluctant hero in the field now, in a way.
Yeah. No, when I was writing the Flintstones, it was sort of I had a real job, so it was just sort of a secondary thing. And I
Right.
thought, well, this is really cool. I've got like sort of a hobby that I really enjoy, and it pays okay.
Right.
But it wasn't until afterwards I realized that no, this is the moment that I really sort of got hooked. This is when I decided this is what I want to do. I just didn't have the courage to do it yet because it meant, you know, leaving, you know, healthcare benefits and retirement benefits behind.
Right.
And writing comics, writing in general for a living is sort of like building a freeway as you're driving on it,
Right.
because you don't have
a great
necessarily like years worth of work lined up. You have maybe 5 or 6 months worth of work lined up, and you have to keep lining up work as you're completing it. So it's kind of a scary existence.
Right. Like being like a musician, or maybe something that's not really secure. Right.
Or
Right,
a
it's very
comic
similar
writer.
to being like like a busker, or somebody who is a freelance artist, and you're dependent on selling paintings.
Yeah.
It's not easy, and it's not it's romantic, but it's not really probably the best career choice for most people.
Like podcasting. No, I'm just
Yeah.
kidding.
Right. Like, follow, subscribe, please.
So
I'll subscribe.
you mentioned briefly that you weren't writing comics at first. You were just writing, like average writing books, whatever.
Right.
What was
Average writing.
That's not what I meant.
Hey,
I'm going to put that on my business card.
Yeah,
average
average writing.
writing.
Average writing. Average
But no,
man.
so transitioning from just pen and reading paper to having to work with an artist, what was it like transferring from writing to writing for comic books?
Well, one of the things I discovered while writing comics, which is why it's now sort of my thing, was that I actually think visually, and so it worked much better for me, I think, writing comics than it did writing prose. Because the thing I always hate about writing prose is trying to create a scene for people, trying to like describe the trees and the weather. I hate that. I don't like reading it, and I don't like writing it. So this way, I could sort of scrape my plate off onto that of an artist and make them do visually what I am reluctant to do with words.
Right.
Which is like best for all concerned, because I'm sure as a reader, you'd much rather see a rainy day in a panel than actually hear me describe a rainy day.
Right. Or it'd be kind of suggested in the dialogue or something.
Yeah, so I really like working in a visual medium and with artists who know how to create the visual part of the visual medium, so I can focus on what I do well, which is basically the dialogue and the narration and the exposition.
all I know is I want to get my hands on some of that Count Chocula fiction.
Oh,
Well, it's
man.
funny you should say that, because
Oh.
it's kind of gone full circle, and now
Serial.
that stuff has become a comic.
Oh,
Yeah, there you
go.
look
Got
at
it over
that.
there.
Look at that. Bring it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, nice, Stephen. That was
Yeah.
good. I wasn't
Absolutely
expecting
terrific.
that. So it's called Serial, huh? Ahoy Comics. Is that what that is?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
I'll have to
that's
check that out.
Frankenberry, it's got Booberry, although for legal reasons I can't obviously not call them that. So Count Chocula becomes the Marquis de Coco.
Oh.
Oh,
So how did
we.
that come
Captain
together?
Crunch becomes Captain Crackle.
Oh.
And,
I like the way you said that. The
Frankenberry's
Marquis de
Frankencherry.
Coco.
It's,
There you go.
It's like the Black Hammer of cereal.
yeah,
I love
there
it.
it
Yeah,
is.
exactly.
Oh, nice.
again, you're just dropping these pull quotes.
Yeah, the Black Hammer of cereal. There you go.
I dig it.
Yeah, my son asked me, he's like, Dad, can I read my 10-year-old? Ezra can't read yet. My 10-year-old said, hey, can I read Serial? I said, go for it. You can read that
That's
one.
good. That one is good for him.
you can read that one.
You might be in line for some therapy bills, but
Yeah.
I appreciate the patronage.
Let's see if you
Very
like
nice.
Lucky Charms after this.
I'm gonna have to pick that up. I see so
cool.
much work out there
So
by
much,
you.
yeah.
You're already like just your net is so wide. I'll have to figure out where I can find that. I'm sure at Alternate Reality.
Yeah, I know.
Look it up. You know.
And some of it is I just don't know what else I would do with myself. I work pretty much 7 days a week, and it's not like, oh, I'm poor me. It's more like this is just what I do.
Yeah.
This is just what if I have a few hours, it's like, and there's nothing. I have nothing on my calendar. It's like, even if I were rich, even if I won the lottery, I would probably go down to a coffee shop or a bar and just write.
With your laptop,
That's amazing.
and then just yeah, I could see that.
That's very relatable. That's very cool to hear you say. It makes me feel less insane or more insane or okay to be is insane.
No, but insane in the same way as a lot of other people, which is the way to go, frankly.
Yeah.
Well, we're thankful that you took the risk, man. I mean, this is a table full,
fantastic.
a room full of guys that are thankful that you took a chance on yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Thank you.
yeah,
That's very gratifying to hear because at the time I was very nervous. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to hack it, and to be honest, I'm still not sure how long I'll be able to hack it. But it's been an amazing ride, and I'm really grateful for everyone who's allowed me to have this existence because it's absolutely what I would have chosen for myself.
If you write it, they will come.
Yeah. You have in fact hacked it. So,
Yeah.
Thank you.
no problem.
What's the rest next couple weeks look like? You got like convention scheduled just like everybody else. I mean, are you buzzing
I'll be in
around
San Diego.
San Diego? Yeah.
And then I'm actually going to LA in August for a signing at Collector's Paradise for X Factor #1.
Oh, nice.
I'll be there with Bob Q, the artist,
Oh,
and we'll be
yeah,
signing
Bob Quinn.
together. So
Nice.
if you're in LA in the area on it's that Saturday, which I think is the 17th.
That sounds right.
But yeah, we'll be signing at Collector's Paradise in North Hollywood the Saturday after X Factor 1 comes out.
Oh, wow.
Very cool. So
Maybe a road trip.
Sounds like a road trip.
I had one last question that I forgot to throw in there earlier, but what was when you won the Eisner Award and the awards that you have won? What was that feeling like? Was it gratifying? Was it like I don't imposter
Scary.
syndrome? Like what did that feel like? And how exciting
Average
was
writing.
that to kind of your average writing got you an Eisner. How did that feel?
Well, it felt great, and I think the main sort of sense I had from it was relief because I'd lost so many awards that it's like, oh, good. Now, no matter what happens, I am the Eisner Award winning, writer, and now I can lose as many as I want.
You got that one under your belt.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's good.
yeah. For all people know, I win every year, but
Right.
That's great.
That's great.
Man.
Yeah, man. Well, if we don't take that road trip, we'll certainly see you at one of these cons, I'm sure.
yeah,
Yeah,
no, I hope
yeah.
to see you all either at San Diego or in North Hollywood or maybe even better, like in Vegas at some point.
Yeah.
Amazing Comic-Con in August.
Maybe have you here instead of there.
If you could put a word,
Yeah.
if you could put a word in for me, I would love to come to the con there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And then maybe even that library festival again, because that's one of
Yeah,
our
I love that library festival.
was-
It's great
yeah.
because
that is the
it was
longest
just
running.
one day,
Mhm.
and they had a lot of non-comics people coming in there. Like a lot of people just wandering off the street because it was free.
Right.
So they had people just coming in who had never read a comic book before and
Right.
and checking it out, which I loved.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
awesome.
And I mean, it's the longest running festival, if you will, or show. What do you ever want to, whatever you want to call it, in Las Vegas, and it's all of our local stores, alternate reality, cosmic comics. You got all the guys who are around locally, and it's a great just home kind of feel, if you
The
will.
vibe.
That
if you
vibe
will.
is very intimate.
it had a really great laid back sort of comic lovers feel to it. It was like, the sort of con I love to go to.
Yeah. So hopefully one day we'll get you back.
Yeah, we'll coordinate it. We'll start working on it, Mark, and
Yeah.
we'll
All right, thank you.
and we'll let you know, and we'll coordinate something, and we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Get you
For
down
real.
here. We appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us tonight. It's awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank
absolutely.
you.
Well,
Thanks,
Thank you.
Frank.
Fantastic.
Thanks, everybody. This has been a super fun conversation, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, keep doing what you do, and we'll keep reading it and enjoying it. I'm sure.
Yeah.
We'll laugh. We'll cry. We'll name our kids
Ezra.
Ezra, so we can bless the name of our
My
children.
son's 26, but I'm going to change his name.
Yeah, that's it.
I'm gonna name my kid Granny Smite. I haven't. It's not even out yet. But
You'd be a middleman.
Tattoo ideas already, right?
I like it. I like it.
How do they
Life
get
goals.
it? Yeah, how do they get you in the social universe? At Man Russ.
Yeah, and that's I'm still technically on Twitter, but I'm almost never actually on Twitter.
Okay.
So the best way to get me is on Threads or Blue Sky or Instagram.
Okay.
Copy that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Marcus, what do you got for the people?
So for the people, again, shout out to Alternate Reality Comics, Ralph and Pierce. Again, they wanted me to give you. I've already said it, but they wanted to make sure that I gave you their regards to you, Mark, to say hi for coming out.
Tell them hi from me back. I
will
really
definitely. Phantomverse Comics, Maximum Comics Northwest. A lot of the guys really like reached out and were very responsive to when I was kind of sending out those.
A lot of
Instagram
buzz leading up this week. To
yes,
for sure.
And they were sharing and liking and getting the buzz generated for you coming on the show. So I wanted to shout out to all the stores in our local area who helped in the way they could. And thank you, Mark. You're incredible. You're an incredible writer. I want you to keep going. And yes, and I mean, Death Ratioed. Oh my God, we didn't get enough time to talk about this one, but this one was phenomenal too.
Yeah.
I love that kind of stuff.
Very, very good.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Uncle Nephew Shane, do you have anything for the people?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you everybody for watching another.
You having a stroke?
What am I saying?
Why?
I just want to say
was that?
thank you
He's
everybody
Granddaddy
for
Smite.
watching. What?
Granddaddy Smite over here.
I'm just saying, I love you guys. I just want to put in my 2 cents and say I love Not All Robots. That was a great read. Thank Mark for coming on the gig. Thank you, Frank, for being you. And Paul, I hate you.
Real quick, we have got local stuff going on this weekend. Stephen Lolito is going to be at Front Row Card Show. 450 vendors. The show is entirely sold out.
Wow.
Everything that if you're a collector of anything, comics, sports cards, Pokemon cards, sports memorabilia, movie memorabilia, all kinds of different things. Stephen.
Yeah, it's going to be at the Rio. It's going to be Saturday and Sunday. It's an incredible event. If you love nerds and everything nerddom,
We all do.
you gotta go. Support little guys like me because I will be selling my comics there. My newest comic, Math Magician 2, just dropped on Wednesday.
Yes.
And
phenomenal.
give me Carpal Tunnel. I want to sign so many of them.
Sign.
Please come on down.
Yes,
goes.
Paul, how do they find us not on Twitter, but everywhere else? How do they find us?
Social web.
Well, they find us not on Twitter, but you can find us on Twitter
Got
at
it.
into_comics. And everywhere else at into the West Comics, Instagram, Twitter, not Twitter. What is wrong with me? TikTok, Apple Pods, Spotify,
Feed
YouTube, where you're
Finder,
watching right now. Like, comment, subscribe, please. And also, thank you, Mark. Like, this is so cool. We're
it's
all, I
awesome.
know we've said it a million times.
It's
and,
awesome.
It's weird to have
This has
people
been
gush
so much
all
fun,
the-
guys. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you.
but yeah, thank you. We can't wait to read X Factor and all the other stuff you keep doing, and
Absolutely.
we hope to chat with you again very, very soon.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Guys, have a good night, Mark. Thank you again. It's pizza time in America.
That's what they say.
Guys, have a great evening. We appreciate you so much. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing. We would love you for it. I'll send Shane to your house. And have a great evening.
I'll come to your house.
We love you. Stay cool.
I'll
Drink
come
some
to your
water.
house.
Drink, and if you're in Vegas, drink lots of water.
Drink lots of water if you're in
Hydrate.
Vegas.
Yes.
148 degrees outside.
I walked
Yes.
outside and was
Like,
drinking some-
comment, share, and
Yeah.
subscribe.
Love you, Eva.
Later.